Heights up there, above the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, which was built in the 1950s. You can see in two layers. The lanes are stacked on top of each other, and then the promenade is at the top, which is a linear park, public park. So that's Brooklyn Heights up there, so that's where I'm going. You can see that there's a lot of newer apartment buildings that were built in the 1930s and later until the 1960s when it became a historic district. That kind of construction would never be allowed today. Here I am down at Fulton Ferry. There's the Brooklyn Bridge. And I'm going to turn right here and go up this little street. And then... Okay, now I'm going to bike up this hill to Brooklyn Heights. It's a steep hill. That was a really, really steep hill. Now I'm at the top of the BQE, looking down at the harbor from the promenade. And this is a great view of the city. Really kind of the best view of Manhattan anywhere. Kind of noisy because of the trucks. This view was much better before they built that ugly building there last year in the foreground. Really kind of a shame, unless you live there. So now I'm going to turn around and we're going to walk over this way into the historic district. Okay, now I'm walking away from the promenade. Hope my camera work isn't too unsteady here. And walking toward the corner of Willow and Middaw Streets in the historic district. And I'm going to cross the street here so you can see a view of my absolute favorite house in the entire city. This is the Eugene Boisselet house, which I showed you in lectures, and this was built in the early days of Brooklyn Heights. Not exactly sure when. I mean, no one is exactly sure when, but probably 1824, 1829, something like that. And here it is right here. And this is a federal period house. And it's in wood clapboard. And it's got the dormer windows up top. And let's go look at the doorway. I'm going to cross the street here. Try not to get hit by a car. And here's the doorway, which this is all original. It's got all those great classical details, which by now you know all the parts of, I'm sure. And then here's the stoop, and there's something here I wanted to show you, which is really interesting. Anybody have any idea what that is? So keep in mind, at this point, all the streets would have been dirt, and I don't think these streets around here were paved at this point. And so there were a lot of horses, and it would get muddy, and there was a lot of horse manure everywhere, and so it just kind of turned into a mud puddle. So before they went in their house, they did this, not with running shoes, but they would scrape their shoes or their boots off on that before they trekked all that crap into the house. So it's called a boot scraper, and you see these on old houses a lot of times, unless they've been removed. So that one has been on there forever. Let's go see if there's one on the other side. Oh, there's not. Oh, there used to be. They took it off. Oh well, that's a shame. Anyway, so we'll go around the side of this house. This is the rear of the Eugene Boisselet house. You can see what's unusual about this. It wasn't unusual at the time, but it's unusual now that the back garden and the carriage house are still intact. So that's an apartment now, but originally that would have been the carriage house. You could see, I don't know if you can see up there, it's got dormer windows in the back as well. Just a spectacular house. Across the street also, these are worth looking at. This row of 4 houses here, and these are from about 1846. And these are, what would you say, based on that doorway, what would you say that style is? It's Greek Revival. And one of these houses, number 22, so the next one, this one was the home of the great abolitionist Henry Ward Beecher. So there's a set of 4 houses here, and they have most of their original detail. The roofs do not have the dormers, as their roofs are not exactly flat, but they're kind of flat. They're not exactly pitched. It's hard to hold the phone steady and look at my notes at the same time. Anyway, so we're going to go down Willow Street here and look at some other stuff. So this is 19 Cranberry Street. It was built in 1834, sorry. This is a federal period house. And I talked about this in one of the lectures, that you can see that roof up there is not original. That is a mansard roof from the 1870s. So that's a clue that not all of the house is original. And let's go look at the doorway. So here you can see that this house has an arched doorway, which was also pretty common for federal period houses. This was a set of 3 houses originally, and you can see that the house next to it has had a lot of stuff done to it over the years, including 2 full stories added to it, and the roof torn off, and the stoop torn off, and the original door torn out. And this window put in instead, and you can see the markings of where the arch was with those discolored bricks there. And then the one next to it has the original doorway again. Now we're continuing south on Willow Street. I'll show you a house up here on the corner. Here's a house at the corner of Willow Street in orange. This is another federal period house. This is from about 1825, so pretty early on. You can see that it's painted yellow. Houses typically were painted brick houses. They would often pick out the mortar joints with white paint, which you never see anymore. But it's got it's 2 stories with the dormer windows up top. Rock around the side. You can see the other facade. This view, you can definitely see the pitched roof and the dormer windows peeking out from the top. Okay, so I'm just going to turn around here, and lest you think that everything in Brooklyn Heights is historic, there's also a lot of this kind of stuff. I mean, it's not bad for what it is, but a modern building. It was built prior to 1965 when it became a landmark district. But then right next to it is one of the most interesting houses in Brooklyn Heights. This is number 70 Willow Street. And it's unusual because it's extra wide. It's a gigantic house. So not really a row house, this is more of a villa, really. And there's a truck in my way. Oh. I gotta get away from this truck. Oh, he's gonna block me again. Oh no. That's okay. So this is okay, well, this is a pretty good view here. This is 70 Willow Street. This is built in 1838, and you can see it's extra wide. It's like double wide, so not really a row house, more of a villa. That doorway there, I mean, that is just Greek Revival to a T, right? The brownstone doorway, looking for all the world like a Greek temple. And this house is also interesting because a couple of reasons. In the 1950s, Truman Capote lived here, the great novelist. This is where he wrote his essay, A House on the Heights. And it's also interesting because a few years ago, it was sold for $17 million. And the new owners, it had been painted yellow, and the new owners stripped all the yellow paint off, for better or worse, whatever. I'll walk down the block and get another view of this. Here's another view just showing the kind of the side angle. This is number 82 here and 84 Willow Street. These have been altered a lot and over the years, but these are two of the oldest buildings in the Heights. And I don't remember the date, so I'm going to have to get back to you on the dates. But the interesting thing is that the stoop goes off to the side. You can see there and there. Not straight down. And then over here is a carriage house. I don't know what year. I'm going to guess 1850s or something. But there's a lot of carriage houses in Brooklyn Heights too, because everybody had a horse and they needed to put their horses somewhere. And often they were not on the same street, so they would have their horses on a street over, or they would have it in a stable right next to their house if they were lucky. Here we are at 102 Willow Street, and this is typical of the Italianate brownstones of the 1850s and 60s. This is one from the 1860s. It's currently used for the Danish Seamen's Church, but originally a private home. This one actually has dormer windows up at the top, and you can see the windows are really detailed, and the doorway. Let's take a look at that, closer look at the doorway. So it has this big stoop, and then it's got this beautiful doorway with the acanthus leaf details on either side of it. Very ornate. Then right next to 102 is 104 Willow Street. There's a tree in the way. This is a spectacularly beautiful house. Not in my notes, but I'll give you the information later. But this is in Clabbered. And you see this in a lot of movies. I've seen it in a lot of movies anyway, as a stage set. And then these three I showed you in the lecture, these are Gothic Revival brownstones from about 1850. There's a set of three of them. And the material here is brownstone. And here that's actually, the brownstone is built as blocks. Often you see brownstone treated as a stucco coat, but those joints are all real. And it's absolutely beautiful brownstone. Brownstone is susceptible to freezing and thawing. It's not a very durable material. If they didn't cut it right in the quarry to begin with, it has a tendency to flake off in layers, which is called spalling. So wherever they cut this brownstone, either probably in Middletown, Connecticut, Portland, Connecticut, or maybe in New Jersey, they cut it in the right direction. And so this looks basically brand new. This is a remarkably well kept house. And the doorway and the windows has that kind of hood mold or drip mold detail. And so the first two are in basically original condition, and then the third one had the roof ripped off and a really terrible third edition put on at some point. Okay, and just 2 doors down from the Gothic Revival houses, we have number 126 Willow Street. This is a Federal period house. You see the dormers up there from about 1834, so kind of late period Federal. It's got the arched doorway, and this is the only fanlight window in Brooklyn Heights. There's a truck. Let me cross the street and I'll show you the fanlight. It's a beautiful detail. It's an arched window. You can see there. And then the detail right above it, you can see that looks like a little brownstone detail with drapery. That's called a swag. You see that sometimes in buildings of this period. Okay, then we're walking down Willow Street through some scaffolding, and I'm going to show you a row of 3 Federal period houses that are remarkably well preserved. Coming up here in a second. I'm shooting into the sun, so I don't know if you're going to be able to see these too well. But it's a set of 3 Federal houses. 2 of the 3 still have their dormers. And these are remarkably well preserved. These are from the 1820s. Let's try to take a look at the doorway of one of them. So this should look really familiar to you. This is basically the same doorway as the first house we saw, the Boisselette house, with the transom window, the side lights, the slender colonnettes. That's all original. And these houses kind of give you a feeling of what Brooklyn Heights might have looked like in the 1820s, when virtually every house in the Heights looked like this. Was either one of these in brick or in clapboard. And that last house you can see there has a later addition. But all 3 of them have the same really well-preserved doorways. Okay, and then we come to the end of Willow Street, and it hits Pierpont Street. So now we're on Pierpont Street, and there's a great house here I want to show you by the great Richard Upjohn, architect of Trinity Church. And right next door, my friend Howard lives in that house. That's not important though. But check this house out on the corner. Again, this is not a row house. This is like 70 Willow Street. This is a freestanding villa, really. It's extra wide, and check out that doorway. This is totally Gothic Revival by the architect of Trinity Church. Let's go take a closer look. I mean, check out this stoop. Look at that stoop. And look at that doorway. Incredible. It's got the pointed arch. It's got these great details over the window. That's my friend Howard's house again. Maybe I can get him to open the window and say hi to you. It's Monday morning. He's probably working in there. Hey, Howard! Howard! Hi, how are you?
What are you doing in my name?
I'm shooting a video for my students.
Oh, and where's your mask?
Huh? It's in my backpack. I can't shoot video and wear a mask at the same time.
I'd say let's go out and get a coffee, but
I don't think so, buddy.
it's impossible.
Hold on. So now I'm down at Willow Place, which is the continuation of Willow Street. It's interrupted for 4 blocks, and then it continues again. And this is the last house I wanted to show you. It's a row of houses here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 houses. And these were built in 1846. And this is an exaggerated version of the Greek Revival. And these are some of my favorite houses. You can see it's not so much that the front doorway is a Greek temple, but they have this entire colonnade that's built in the front that unites all of the houses together. Here's a shot of one of the houses. And that one has dormer windows up at the top. Somebody just slammed one of the doors. And anyway, so the really interesting, one of the interesting things about this, let's cross the street here, is that there was a matching set built across the street. So there were 4 houses built across the street, and they faced each other. So I'm going to turn around and you can see what's left of the same house across the street once this car goes by. So here I'm looking across the street, and that's what's left of the original, what was originally, I assume, was 4 houses just like on the opposite side of the street, because that's an identical house. But this is the only fragment that is left. It's in much better shape than it used to be, believe it or not. It used to just be like a ruin, basically. But it's been fixed up a little bit. And then on either side of it, as long as I'm here, these are modern row houses here and here that were designed by Joseph and Mary Mertz, a married couple of architects. These were built in 1966, and these are examples of modern row houses that they did allow to be built in the historic district because they were thought to be okay in terms of scale and materials and everything. And I really love these houses too. I think they're really well built and well thoughtfully detailed. Interesting use of materials. It's concrete block with wood window frames. And there's another one around the block. So they built 3 of these houses, and they're flanking the remnants of the colonnade row here. So that's the last house for the walking tour. Goodbye.